where we can provide the most value is by helping them in a proactive way to maximize that financial information, to make decisions and to be more profitable and to minimize taxes. So that's really our sweet spot. The foundation of us being able to do that is completely reliant on those clients having accurate, timely records.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a good one. Our guest is the Managing Partner and Director of Business Development at TDT CPAs and Advisors. She has 19 years of experience in public accounting and serves on the firm's executive committee and leadership team. Courtney DeRonde, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. So glad to be here.
It's great to have you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I mean, you've been at this a while, and I always know there's, 19 years of experience is literally, we could do an episode for every year of business, I'm sure. So Courtney, tell us a little bit about your career journey leading up to this point.
Sure. So I'm a CPA, and I started out in public accounting at this firm at TDT in client service. So I did some tax and some auditing work early on in my career when we were smaller, and I found right away that I loved auditing. Part of it was I liked being out of the office and just working on site at clients, working in a team, but I liked the work and the thought process of it. And so what I got to do early in my career was develop an audit business unit, an audit practice area in our firm. So instead of having people do a little bit of both, I got to develop a team that only did auditing. So I got to be part of delivering that service and growing a practice, hiring team members, training them, developing them, adding new clients, figuring out our processes and our systems. And I just learned a ton about developing a division and developing a team and gaining new clients and building their trust and their loyalty. And I got to do auditing as well. And so that was a big chunk of my career. And then after I'd say about 15 years into my career, I started to transition out of client service and into business development for the whole firm. So a few years ago, we implemented EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's based on a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. It's a system for running a growth stage business. So when we implemented that business, one of the things we realized was that our business model and our organizational structure didn't have anyone fully focused on sales and marketing. And because of the skills that I had developed in building the audit practice, then I transitioned into using those skills to build the whole firm and focusing on business development for the entire firm, and in preparing for the transition to managing partner, to leading the firm as the CEO as we prepared for our managing partner to retire as well. So I've got the experience of serving clients and developing a division, being part of firm leadership, and doing business development. So though I've been at TDT for my whole career, I feel like I've done lots of different things and have been able to continuously grow and develop. And I just have this unique perspective in that I understand what we do and why it matters, and can clearly articulate that to our clients and then connect them with the people in our firm who are best positioned to serve them and help them on an ongoing basis.
It's an amazing journey that you've been on. And even before this conversation that we had today, we were chatting about how you had a meeting with some strategic partners this morning, which I think is just a fantastic way to grow your business. Have you always been that type of person that could just go out and develop? I mean, you have an accounting background, you worked in client service, and then now you're doing business development. It seems like those two worlds often are when I look at many of our listeners, and I talk to our listeners, it's like clients, mostly people are working in client service, but don't have a strong suit around doing that business development. How has that always been your key thing, or how did that develop?
Yeah. So earlier on in my career, I was very uncomfortable networking. You'd go to a Chamber of Commerce event. And I was like, oh, I don't know anybody. They're all older than me, or they're smarter than me. They're more successful than me. I'm not comfortable. And the switch for me came when I realized that networking in its most effective form is about building relationship. It's just making new friends. And sometimes you meet people and you don't have anything in common and you don't click, and you don't have to pursue it. Sometimes you meet somebody, you have a ton in common, you enjoy being with them, and you say, I'm going to develop this relationship like a friendship. And eventually there will likely be ways that we can help each other out in business. But if not, what's the harm in adding another friend? So I think that was a big switch for me. The other thing from the client facing side was focusing on being helpful. I don't have to sell anything. I just have to listen and understand what they need and see if we can help them. And know that we can't be all things to all people. We can't help everyone, but for those who are needing things that we can help with, that's what selling is about, I believe. And so I think that's how, for me as a CPA and an accountant who is more introverted and, not your typical outgoing, salesperson, I think those were the two changes and mindset for me, was thinking about building relationships or friendships with people that I want to be around, and focusing on how can I help this client with what they need, not how do I sell them something that they may not want or need.
I have some exciting news for you. The Successful Bookkeeper podcast now has a free global virtual event called the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. That's right, it's a 2-day online conference featuring 20 incredible speakers from the bookkeeping, accounting, and business worlds, some of which include best-selling author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and pricing expert Mark Wickersham, to name just a few. At the summit, you'll receive tips on how to price your bookkeeping services, market your business, hire great staff, and so much more. It all begins on December 2nd, 2021. To secure your free spot, visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Again, that's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Don't miss this chance to rise up and change your bookkeeping business in 2022. Register today, and I'll see you at the summit. Now, let's get back to our interview. It's a really great perspective. And, when you think about it, for us in our life, I mean, whether we, find a life partner or our group of friends, whatever the case may be, I mean, it's not like we just go with the first person we meet. Typically, it's an iteration process. And if we just stayed inside our house for our whole life, we'd never have any of those things, friends or a family or, loved ones, just our current family. So it's a neat perspective to look at it. I don't think we've actually talked about it from that perspective on the show before. So I kind of like that. And I'm curious now, when you, like, for instance, today, you had some significant meetings with some key potential partners. Tell me how those actually came to be.
Sure. We try to connect with, specifically me in my role, I try to connect with other professionals who serve a similar type of client that we do, and meet them and try to build relationships and find people who serve under a similar approach. Maybe they have similar values, similar approach to serving clients, and develop a relationship so that I feel like if our client has a need for an attorney, an insurance agent, a banker, a lender, an investment advisor, whatever it may be, that I feel comfortable referring them to someone, because when they meet them, they'll be like, oh, well, I understand why Courtney, thought that I would like working with them. Not like, who was that? Why did you why did you send me that jerk? And so part of my role is to meet people and make those connections. And what often happens is when I meet someone with that focus on building a relationship and being genuine, just I am who I am, and if we click, great, and if not, no problem. We don't need to force anything. And so by creating these genuine friendships and relationships, I tend to get further connections from those people. So they'll say, oh, I think you should meet so and so. And so let's meet for coffee or let's meet for lunch and I'll introduce you. And I do the same thing for people I meet and think could be, valuable relationships to have with other people that I already know and like as well. And so that's how most of it comes about, is just by being willing to grab coffee with someone and to learn about who they are and what they like to do, what they're passionate about, their family, their business, their own goals, and just get to know more about them and develop that relationship. And then oftentimes other connections come from them as well.
That's fantastic. And when you're setting up these meetings, how do you actually get a meeting set up?
So a lot of times it will be just an introduction from somebody else. It'll say, Courtney, meet Michael. I think you guys would really hit it off and let's grab coffee. And so somebody else, a third party that knows us both is setting us up to get to know each other. Otherwise, if there's somebody who I think there would be a good connection with, but I don't know them, I will often approach somebody who we have in common and ask them if they think it would be a good fit and if they would be willing to make an introduction, just so it's warmer and it's not I'm not some random person reaching out. I also am involved in a lot of different groups. So I'm in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, the Iowa chapter. I'm in NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners, Iowa chapter. I'm in a couple of different CEO peer groups. And so I meet people, through those organizations and their networking opportunities, their masterminds, those types of things as well. So we get put into those groups, and then I'll follow up with somebody that I met there and say, let's have lunch. I'd love to learn more about you. So it's I don't do much, if any, cold outreach. It's definitely more warm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're unpacking a model of building a network that I think can work for anyone, large or small. Obviously, this is a big, you invest a lot of your time and energy into this, and that's, the pros of having a large organization is that you can have people that can just say, well, I'm going to focus on business development. I'm going to focus on nurturing these relationships, but doesn't mean a one-person business can't invest a portion of their time into doing exactly what you're doing. And from my opinion, this is a solid way to build a network, because you're building a network with people that it's not just, I've met one person and now that's all I have. It's, I'm meeting lots of people. I'm finding out who I like, who I think I might want to work with myself, be able to refer business to those people, or work with those people, or vice versa. And if you go forward first, I mean, you're the one driving it. You're meeting these people and you're saying, hey, I want to know you if I can refer business to you. And then it turns into them wanting to refer business to you. Big surprise. You're a nice person. You're trustworthy, great, record. That's such a great formula.
Yeah, it's definitely been very successful for us in terms of just building those relationships with people who we know and enjoy being around. The other thing I would say for your listeners who have teams of people, so maybe you're not a solo bookkeeper, you've got other members of your team. The other thing I do is once I've met someone and feel like there's a good connection there between our businesses, then a lot of times I'll suggest, well, let's get together and have a happy hour or a lunch with our teams and introduce some of my team to your team, so that maybe there will be some connections that develop out of our group. So it's not just me and you. We've got other people in our teams who are connected. And so we have a place here in Des Moines called Smash Park that is a really fun place that has all kinds of games. It's got bags and cornhole and giant Jenga and pickleball. And for us, we think that's fun. And so we'll have a very casual happy hour where people can play those games or stand around and talk, or we'll meet, for drinks, late in the afternoon, and just have some more of those casual interactions to provide opportunities for our teams to meet as well.
So interesting. I mean, with that, I'm curious, the past 18 months, we've had a pandemic. I'm curious, how has that changed? I mean, obviously things are starting to go back to I don't even want to call it normal, but they're going back
The
to
new
something.
normal. Yep.
The new normal, whatever we're going to call that, the way that it is. But I'm really curious because we've talked about, in-person meetings. We're talking about having people get together in a physical space. Obviously, there was a point of time where that wasn't possible. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, so we did some virtual meet and greets. So we tried to do smaller groups than we would have in person, because in a virtual setting, unless you do breakout rooms, you can kind of only listen to one person at a time. Whereas if we're at Smash Park, a couple people can talk and a couple other people can talk. So just smaller group virtually through Zoom, and provide introductions and just share more about each other. So it was definitely not as easy. But what we found is the people that we reached out to were saying, no one else is asking us to do this. Like, we would love to get together virtually. No one else is doing anything. We'd be glad to do this. So we were able to sustain some of those connections and relationships through that time when we couldn't be together in person by meeting virtually in smaller groups. We also had virtual coffees with, maybe say there'd be 2 of us or 4 of us, and we'd, grab coffee or send a gift card to get coffee and then meet up virtually and just, catch up over virtual coffee from all of us from our home offices. And so that's how we handled it. But we are glad to be back to be able to meet in person, and Smash Park that I mentioned has indoor and outdoor activities. So that can kind of help too with, having some space outdoors and not being confined in small, close spaces.
I love it. I love, there's a message there in, I think at a higher level is that the way it comes across to me, the way that you deal with things is, we're going to do something. We're going to figure it out, see if it works, find a way. And I think that's a great spirit to have as a business owner, is that you don't know if something's going to work, but you have to try something and do something to see whether it will work. And look, no one else was doing anything. So you actually stood out in the crowd as being different, which is memorable and powerful. So there's always something that can be done under any circumstances. And whether it's, a pandemic or change in business or industry shifts, you've got to do something. You've got to figure it out and take action. So I love that spirit. Now, what I also think is cool is the numbers. I mean, we, just to sort of cap up this conversation around meeting people, it's such a great context of meeting friends. And I mean, if we look at it from a numbers perspective, you've met 2 people today, this week. I mean, if you did that, if you just met one new person, that might be a new friend every week. Like, that's a target, is just how can I meet one new person every week, and maybe they turn into a friend, maybe they don't. That's 52 in a week, in a year. That's a lot. I mean, and often you say, many people are doing nothing. They're just doing the work. They're living their life, going about their business. And so if we enter in and add one thing that's different into our life, it doesn't have to be a lot. It's just one thing that can have a massive impact. I mean, out of those 52, you might meet 2 that become business besties, and can be fantastic for your business. So thank you for sharing those. I'm also curious, along the way, what barriers or obstacles for you personally as a business leader came up, and how did you, if there's memorable ones through your journey, and how'd you deal with them?
I would say the biggest obstacle for me is avoiding burnout. I think within bookkeeping and within public accounting, there's a lot of burnout because there's some compressed deadlines. If you're a bookkeeper that does payroll, there's pressure to get payrolls done and to get quarterlies done. And, for us, we have a department that does tax returns, and there's obviously deadlines around that. So that as we really clarified our vision and our values when we implemented EOS, we started thinking about, well, how can we develop the firm in a way, continue to grow the firm, reinvent the firm in a way that we're relevant to our clients on into the future, and we can recruit and retain team members. But we have to have it be a place that we, as the youngest partners in the firm who have the longest runway here as owners, that we can stay in as well. We don't want to end up at the end of our career, divorced or with no hobbies or having a health crisis because we burned ourselves out. And so as we clarified the vision and the values and really started to grow rapidly, we started to feel that overwhelm and that burnout of, this is not sustainable. So thankfully, I found some wonderful tools and resources to help me personally, which then got cascaded to my leadership team and on down to our entire firm, how to make sure that we are succeeding professionally without sacrificing our personal lives and our personal health. And I'm glad to talk more about what those are if you'd like. But that, for me, overcoming burnout was definitely the biggest challenge that I saw as we started to really grow. It gets overwhelming and you start to feel like everything's urgent and everything's important and you can't keep all the balls in the air. You're not a good mom. You're not a good wife. You're not a good daughter. You're not a good sister. You're a really good, bookkeeper or accountant or leader or business owner, but you can't keep it all up. And so how do you find that balance and really define what success means and what you can give on and what you can't?
I'd love to hear more about your formula for that, and I think it's critical. I mean, when you talk about burnout, I mean, we throw it around like it's a word. Oh, burnout, don't want to be burnt out, but realistically, burnout means you've lost something: the will, the stamina, the desire, the passion. I mean, without that, what do you have? Nothing.
Yeah. So what really started for me was I read a book by Michael Hyatt called Free to Focus. And Free to Focus I recommend it to anyone who is feeling like they can't keep everything going and they don't know what to do. It's a great book with very practical steps. We've given it to all of our team. We've taught on it. We've had Michael Hyatt and Company come in and teach on it. It really teaches us how to determine what is ours to do. What things, the words he uses are, where are you most passionate and proficient? What things fill you up and you're really good at? How can you spend your time there? And the things where you're not passionate or proficient, he calls that your drudgery zone. Delegate it or get rid of it. But what we found is that things that are in my drudgery zone, I have other team members who that's their desired zone. They're passionate about it. They're proficient at it. And by giving those things to them to do, it fills them up and it takes it off of my plate because it's something that I don't love to do. And so he uses this concept, it's called the Freedom Compass, to really look at all the things you do and put them into those categories and then determine how can you find other ways to get those things done and spend more of your time in that desire zone. Like, where do you contribute the most to your business and how can you spend your time there? So that's one of the tools in Free to Focus is that Freedom Compass. We've used that with all of our team members. We continually use it. And there's also a section of that that's on development. So maybe I'm not proficient at something yet, but I'm very passionate about it. That doesn't mean I have to ignore it. It means it could be in my development zone. It's something I'm going to learn more and grow more so that I become proficient at it. So that's been a wonderful tool. They also talk about how you can use certain productivity tools to make sure that you're not just hustling more, working more hours, but you're really limiting the hours that you work, because research shows beyond, say, 50 hours a week, you go backwards in productivity anyway. But how can you be really productive in those hours that you do work so that you get things done that need to be done and that are yours to do? So they teach about having routines and boundaries and managing your energy. So they go into great depth in that book. You can certainly apply the tools. And then they also have a group business coaching that we're in our third year of, that has been tremendously helpful in just further implementation of those same concepts and tools. But it all started with that book. And for me as the leader, feeling like, okay, this is what I need, and how can I do this to make sure I can sustain this career and this position as a leader without sacrificing my personal life and my family and my health. And once I caught on to it and felt like, okay, this is effective, this is working, then I had my leadership team do the same. And once we got it underway, then we cascaded it to our whole team, and it's a huge part of our culture now.
It's remarkable. Congratulations on it. And it's one of those things. Where do you invest your time? Do you invest your time in just doing the work, or do you go figure out how can we do the work more efficiently? How can we be more efficient? How can we deal with things in the best possible way? That leads to then more time, more energy to do better and better and better. It's continuous improvement, which is fantastic. Sounds like a fantastic book. And so thank you, and program. So thank you for the referral on that for our listener.
Absolutely.
Yes, wonderful. And it cuts back to that piece, you can understand. It's like if we take care of our mind, that's essentially one of the most key assets we have as a human being. So we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and our mindset, and that can lead to any kind of success that we want in our lives.
Yeah, and I think it's so countercultural, especially for entrepreneurs and business owners, this kind of hustle mindset of, in order to be successful, you got to feel busy all the time. You should be burnout, just do more, sleep less. I think that's very much a part of our culture. And so to say, no, that's not what I want, and to find another way to be successful without that kind of can feel like you're going against the grain. It's not uncommon to meet people who feel like they're succeeding in that way, but really they're on the fast track to getting burnt out. And so it does take a little bit of courage, to take a stand against doing it another way. But I can attest that we've found tremendous success personally and professionally here as a firm in implementing this mindset rather than that, hustle perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting take, right? Think about it. It's, that mindset, it's almost like combining a sporting mindset perhaps with business. And when I think about the most successful people I know in business, they're not running around working all through the night. They have a successful family, they have successful hobbies, they have successful business, and they work really smart. They're very, they've spent a lot of time in their lives, most of them, on figuring out a lot of the things that you're talking about today. Is how do I make all of the things in my life work? Because if one falls off, how can you call yourself successful if you have no family and you've blown up everything else in your life just to be successful in business? It's a dangerous mindset. I agree with you on that. And sure, it might be cool to watch some of these videos and hey, work hard, but at the end of the day, take care of yourself first is going to be a winning strategy.
Yes, absolutely.
Just like you've done. I love that. You took care of yourself. Then you say, hey, this is working for me. Let's get other people in our team to do some of these things and help them. I mean, as a leader, as a business leader, it's a top-down approach, but it's one that is, hey, this is working for me. This is helping my life, and I want this for you. By the sounds of things, what a great place to work, where you have your leadership going, gee, I want you to be successful outside of work, not just in work. And that's what will have people stay with you in your business. I mean, you can compete on salaries, you can compete on benefits, right? But you're also competing on culture and the leadership. Often, over the years, I've learned is that people leave because of leadership most of the time. So kudos to you and your organization for how you're running your business. I do have a question about, obviously you're running a very large accounting firm, an advisory firm, and over the years, you've probably worked with a lot of bookkeepers and had partnerships with bookkeepers. I'd love to hear your take on how you've worked with bookkeeping firms over the years.
Sure. So we believe that where we can provide the most value to our clients, who are primarily small businesses and nonprofit organizations, where we can provide the most value is by helping them in a proactive way to maximize that financial information, to make decisions and to be more profitable and to minimize taxes. So that's really our sweet spot. The foundation of us being able to do that is completely reliant on those clients having accurate, timely records. And so a lot of times they don't. And so they want us to be proactive with them. They want us to help them minimize taxes, and their books are a mess. And so the foundation of being able to do effective budgeting or forecasting or tax planning or profitability analysis is that someone is keeping the books clean and accurate on a timely basis. So that is foundational to what we are able to do. So we work with clients who maybe outsource their bookkeeping to another bookkeeper. Maybe they have an internal bookkeeper, or maybe they have our team. We have a segment of our firm who does transactional bookkeeping as well. But we never require that. In order for us to do those other services, we don't require that we do the bookkeeping. We just require that someone is doing that effectively. So I think, that's what we look for, is somebody who is really focused on making sure that things are accurate and timely. The other piece of it, I would say, that we look for is somebody who understands the importance of the financials being relevant. And what I mean by that is that when a client or a business owner looks at their financial statements, it's organized and presented in a way that is relevant to the decisions that they need to make, or to the information that their lenders or investors are gleaning from that information. So sometimes that means we have to refine the chart of accounts, or we have to use another dimension of reporting to be able to provide profit and loss by class or division or location, or some other dimension of reporting, that we're not just recording transactions. We're not just making a digital check register. We are getting financials that are accurate and timely, but also entering data at a level of detail that gets the business owner or their leaders the relevant information that they need to make decisions. So that's what we're looking for when we're working with other bookkeeping firms, or when we have our team members do it, or we have a client who has it taken care of internally. That's really what we think provides the most value to the business owner from a bookkeeping perspective.
It sounds like there's, obviously the getting things accurate and on time, a key component that every bookkeeping firm should be looking to be able to do and do well. When it comes to what's relevant, that sounds like there's communication required between yourself and the bookkeeping team, whether it's in-house or outsourced or internal at your client's firm. What's the best way to facilitate that for our listener? I mean, this is gold that you're giving to our listener. This is how to win business with, potential referral partners. How do they, what's the best way they can communicate that and bring that to someone like yourself?
Yeah, so we do this collaboratively, and we include the business owner as well. And so primarily what we're doing is asking the business owner or the leaders of the organization, what drives your business? What are your goals? What is most important to you? And what are the spreadsheets that you use to actually know what's going on? A lot of times business owners, they don't even look at their financials. They don't look at the profit and loss. They don't look at the balance sheet. They have some other spreadsheet or report from some other system that's what they look at to know how things are really going. And to the extent that we can take the data they're gleaning from that and build the accounting system to have transactions entered at the appropriate level of detail to get that information straight from the financial system, that's how we make them relevant. So if they say, I look at my project management software that tracks project timing and project costs and budgets to know if our projects are profitable or not, if our jobs are profitable or not. That's what I look at. Well, does that information capture all of the indirect costs, or are you just looking at the specific costs of that project and really thinking you're way more profitable than you are because you're not accounting for an allocation of overhead? How can we change the way we enter transactions into the accounting system, even if it's, QuickBooks? Most of our clients use QuickBooks. They don't have to have some big, ERP system. But how can we design the chart of accounts, the dimensions, and the reporting to get transactions in at that level? So it's very much a discussion, understanding the business and the goals of the business owner and what is important to them, so that when they get these financials, they can actually have the information they need to make decisions. So we're not making those decisions in a vacuum. There's no standard, format that works for everyone. It's really about understanding the business and the goals, and then setting up the structure of the accounting system to support that, to be able to report on that. So very collaborative discussion with the business owner and the bookkeeping firm or internal team members, whoever it is, who's going to be recording the transactions, so they understand why it matters, because it might add a little bit more work for them. They might have to add some additional tags to transactions, or, it could add a little bit more work on the front end. But if they understand why it's so important on the back end, they can really recognize the impact that they're making by doing that work.
So valuable. Some great insights. And I mean, there's so much opportunity to work with people like yourself. But you've got to, that's, again, just that one thing. If you just take it up a notch, increase communication by asking more questions, of the clients you're working with, and as well the accounting team that's working with your mutual client, it's a winning formula, because now relationships get built at a whole new level, and there's more possibility inside of that whole trio of relationship, the client, the accounting team, and as well the bookkeeping team that might be working on that.
Definitely.
This has been an absolutely fantastic conversation, Courtney, and I thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences. And I know so valuable for our listener right now to hear these encouraging words in running their business.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on.
It's great. Courtney, if people wanted to get to know more about your firm and potentially refer business to the firm that you're working and running, how might they do that?
Yes. So they can find us online at TDTPC.com. There's places on there to learn more about the firm and our team members, to connect with us or to reach out to schedule a call with me. Would love to do that. You can also, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Courtney DeRonde. I do a video every week where I share about things going on in the firm or what I'm learning or how we're growing. And so I'd love for you to connect or follow me on LinkedIn as well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much. And we'll, of course, have those links in the show notes for our listener to go and click on and get to know more about you. And Courtney, again, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
Beautiful. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.